Hi everyone, today's video is special because we are celebrating 5,000 subscribers on the channel. It's really amazing to me. When I made the channel a couple of months ago, my goal was to have 100 subscribers by the end of the year. And I expected most of those to be like, my friends and maybe my mom. My mom is subscribed, by the way, so hi mom, thanks for watching. But thank you so much to everybody else who has been kind enough to subscribe to the channel and to show all of this amazing support. It's been a lot of fun. It's really one of the most fun things I've ever done, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. So big thank you. And what I wanted to do for this sort of celebration video is I wanted to give you the most requested video on the entire channel. So this week I went through my comments and my private messages, and I found that probably the most requested video overall. I mean, there are a lot of ways to phrase the question, but it's basically how do I get better at Tekken, how do I reach a higher rank in Tekken, and how do I escape a lower rank in Tekken. I feel like I'm stuck at this place I am right now and I want to get higher. How do I do it? And so that's the video I want to bring you. It's a very wide and very difficult question. So in terms of structure, what I thought I'd do is we're going to start at some of the lower ranks of Tekken and we're going to work our way up, and at every stage I just want to give you certain steps I think you could use to elevate yourself above other people playing on those ranks, because that's really the problem. You need to play in a way where you can beat other people who are playing at the exact same rank as you. That's what's going to make you go higher. And there are specific tendencies and specific tricks that you gradually start incorporating as you get higher and higher and better at the game. And I sort of want to give you my view of those. So that's what the video is going to be. I think this is enough of an introduction, so we're just going to jump straight into it. I want to start here at the Teal ranks, which are the lowest ranks that I'm going to talk about in this video. If you find yourself below these ranks right now, really what you need to do is just spend time with the game and get warmed up, and you're going to be here before long, trust me. But if we start off with the Teal ranks, the tips I want to give you in terms of these ranks is the first thing that came to mind is I want you to think about attacking after blocking. You might not know or understand frame data and the concepts of frame advantage and disadvantage yet, and that's fine. You just need to be aware that in general in fighting games and in Tekken, when you get an attack blocked, that usually means that your next attack is going to come out a little bit slower than your opponent's, and so getting an attack blocked and then attacking again can be very risky. That's what creates this kind of rhythm or dance in Tekken, where one player will attack and get blocked, and then it's the opponent's turn, and then he will take his turn and attack and usually get blocked, and then it becomes this sort of back and forth. The momentum and the sort of direction of the match tends to switch when somebody in that space, in this sort of back and forth dance, makes an accurate prediction, such as ducking one of those moves or interrupting one of those moves with something really fast, and so on. But you need to sort of get in the mindset of that rhythm, because if you are constantly attacking out of order, that's when you get this sense that a lot of people talk about when they're new to a fighting game, where I feel like everything I do just gets blocked and everything my opponent does is completely unbeatable. It's probably because you are attacking when it's not really your turn to. And that's probably going to be a big step up for you. So I want you to practice patience, I want you to practice blocking, and I want you to focus on attacking after having blocked an opponent's attack. That's going to reduce the amount of unnecessary damage you take by a lot, I think. The next tip I've written here is learn your combos. Now, big caveat to this, a lot of high-level players talk about how Tekken is not a combo-focused game. It is actually a movement-based game. That is absolutely true, by the way, they are right. But it's become a little bit like people think that learning combos and focusing on combos is something that bad people who don't understand the game do. And that's not true. Combos are still a very big part of the game, and they are very important, and they are one of your most major sources of damage. And so when you are able to launch your opponent, I think it is important that you are able to capitalize and deal at least a decent enough amount of damage that the combo or the launch was not wasted. You want to be able to land your combo consistently enough that it's going to hit somewhere around 8 out of 10 times when you get the launch at this level. When you can do that, that's going to, and I'm not talking about practice mode, I'm talking about in a real match against another person. That's important to know as well. Your combo does not have to be optimal, it does not have to be max damage at all, but try and make sure that it has a corkscrew in there, and try to make sure that you get off of a standard 15 frame launcher somewhere in the region of 55 damage or more. If you can get 55 damage or more, then you've at least not wasted your launch, and you're going to be able to keep up with your opponent if they are able to combo. So that's important. The next thing I want you to pick up is I want you to learn what your what your own character's safe moves are. If you're new to the concept of safe moves and unsafe moves, I'm not going to go into detail about that in this video because it will just become way too long, but there are many sources out there where you can pick up this information. If you already know about the concept of safe and unsafe moves, then this is the first encounter you're going to have with your own character's frame data. Be aware that in Tekken, any move that is -9 or less on block is considered a safe move. And most of the time when you are attacking, you should be trying to use safe moves, and you should be using unsafe moves mainly when you have an accurate prediction or you've visually confirmed some sort of opportunity such as a whiff, and that's when you do something like a punishable hop kick. Or maybe you have a read on a low, so you do a hop kick and you try and crush that and so on. But most of the time try to apply safe moves, because otherwise you might just end up losing a lot of damage because you're getting interrupted or punished, which can be very dangerous. The last and one of the most important tips for new players, in my opinion, is to avoid character hopping. This is really important because, okay, if you listen to high, like world-class level pros, they create their own tier lists and they talk about tier lists, but they almost like never whine and complain about the relative position of characters in tier lists, and they very rarely seem to base their character choices on tier lists. Conversely, people who are playing at these ranks, I know a lot of people who are playing at these ranks right now, and I've been there myself, and I've had a lot of friends who've had these experiences. They tend to complain and talk about tier lists a lot, and it's paradoxical, because it's really the case that at these ranks your character choice does not matter, and you are playing at a rank where even if you are playing the highest tier character or the lowest tier character in the game, that fact is not going to come to bear whatsoever at the level you are playing at. I don't want it to sound as though I'm talking down to anybody, because I'm certainly not. I mean, it's very hard when you're new to a fighting game and you're trying to learn the basics, but I just want you to know that if you have a character that you like and that you want to learn, be confident that you can take that character so much further, and it does not matter at all what people say about the character right now, because that stuff comes so much later. Devil Jin is a very strong character in this game because he has electrics, which are extremely good. If you're playing at this rank, almost nobody knows how or why they are good or how to apply them correctly. I mean, it's just like a completely outlandish thing to worry about for you right now. If you want to, if you're struggling to sort of find your main or learn what character you want to play right now, I've made a video on this channel called How to Pick a Main, and I want to plug that video here quickly. The only thing I'll say is when you're completely new, maybe try and stay away from Mishimas, and maybe try and stay away from Eliza or Akuma, unless you happen to already be a somewhat accomplished 2D fighting game player. And then basically everything else is completely valid, because you don't need to learn all of these like difficult technical things. And right now it's much more about learning the rhythm and the very basics of blocking and attacking in Tekken, and then like stuff like tier lists and stuff comes so much later, and it's not even a big factor at the highest levels of play. If you try and find a solution in terms of switching your character, and you feel like my character is so weak and I want to play something else that's going to be stronger, you are probably wasting time, because what you want to develop is this cool like sort of instinct and feeling where you don't moves just sort of happen and flow automatically from your character, and that is something that happens when you've spent a lot of time with the same character without switching. And so right now I think one of your best options would be to find something that you like and try and just stick with it and see how far you can take it, and then maybe worry about developing other characters later. That's going to tie it up for the Teal ranks. That's basically what I wanted to talk about that. And here comes really the big one. The green ranks, according to official Tekken statistics, is where most of the players in the world who play Tekken regularly find themselves. So this is basically where most normal Tekken players play the game. And there are very distinct things I think you can do that will allow you to navigate through these ranks, but I want you to be aware that it is difficult, it is a grind, it takes time. It's basically the biggest sort of step in terms of becoming a better Tekken player, because it's just a jungle, and it's really aggressive, and it's really hard, and you have to push yourself to the limits of human reaction time and so on. So if you're in here and you're struggling, biggest tip I can give you is stay patient, but there are some other really important things that we need to talk about. So the biggest thing I want to give you here is start to move sideways. If you haven't already started experimenting with sideways movement, this is the time to do it, because it's going to be the biggest divider, in my opinion, between people who make it out of green ranks and people who don't make it out of green ranks. To go a little bit deeper here. So when Namco developed Tekken, they create moves, and they need those moves to be balanced. They want them to be good and useful in some situations, but they need to balance the moves out so that they're not broken good. One of the tools they use is that they can make a move linear, sidesteppable, or sidewalkable. So for example, you can have a move that is really good and has all these great properties, but if your opponent's able to predict it and sidestep or sidewalk it, it becomes a big risk. Now this move has a balance factor introduced, right? In the green ranks, people tend to not move sideways much at all. And so the consequence of that is that these moves that are balanced around the fact that they are sidesteppable become completely broken and overpowered and abusable, because the factor that is supposed to balance the move goes out the window, and now almost all of the positive factors only remain. And so what we're talking about here is moves like Peacekeeper from Hwoarang, down forward 3+4, the cartwheel launcher from Lily, legend kicks from Law, death fists from Paul. These are moves that you probably know and see all the time in these ranks, and that you get launched by or damaged by a lot. And so what I want you to try and do is start experimenting with sideways movement if you haven't already. It's kind of this thing where you can't just like learn and watch how to do sideways movement and when to do it and then go and apply it perfectly right away. What you do is you start and try sidestepping in certain situations and try and get a feel for it. And I remember like one moment back in the early days of Tekken Tag 2, I was playing against Law, did a legend kick, and I just thought, I'm going to try and actually properly sidestep it this time, and I did, and I applied an arc blast with Lars and launched him for it, and it was like this light bulb in my mind. I'm like, oh, I see, and then I started to do it more and more and more, but you sort of need those moments where you start to get a little bit warmed up in terms of sideways movement, and you need to start incorporating it into your normal game plan, because if you do, a lot of these like exploitative, really sort of annoying characters that you run into all the time in these ranks become so much easier to deal with. And if you can start to do that somewhat properly, I think you're going to be able to make it out of green ranks quite quickly. It's really the biggest divider. The next three things I've written here are really, you can bunch them together: break throws, block lows, punish. Basically, what I'm talking about here is, again, throws is something that gets abused on these ranks the same way linear moves do. Big lows that knock the opponent down or launch them, such as Snake Edges, Dragon Tails, Demolition Man, also get abused. And so when your opponent does these moves, or when they do a really powerful move that is balanced around the fact that it is punishable on block, you need to make them pay. You need to make them pay for making a mistake or trying to use an exploit. If you can do that once against certain opponents on these ranks, it's going to completely throw them off. I mean, I've played against opponents that have just constant pressure. They're doing their favorite flowcharts and they're just applying their favorite flowcharts, and it's so much offense. And then one time I just sidestep something properly, or block and launch punish a launch punish below properly, and it's almost like they lose all of their momentum and their will to fight, because now they're sort of completely thrown off momentum. That doesn't happen to them a lot in these ranks, right? And so if you can start to try and do this properly, it's going to be the next really huge step towards going to higher ranks. I want to mention here that I know that a lot of people say that breaking throws seems impossible on reaction because they are too fast, and that online where there's a little bit of lag, it becomes especially difficult, and blocking certain big lows that are around the 21 frame impact frame mark is completely impossible as well. Just be aware that it is not impossible even with online lag. Even though it is difficult, you're never going to learn how to do it 100% of the time, but if you can learn to do it 50% of the time, then these ranks are going to be much easier for you. But just be aware that everybody feels that it is impossible until they learn how to do it. Everybody feels like breaking throws properly is completely impossible until they start doing it, and then it gets a little bit easier every time you successfully do it, and then you'll just have it. That's really the way it goes with most things in Tekken. It feels completely impossible, but then one day it just clicks, and then it gets a lot easier exponentially after that. Be aware that anybody can do it, including you. I know people who are half my age and twice my age who've learned how to do it. I know people who who struggle with severe disability who have learned how to do it. Don't worry about it. You can do it. It's just a question of how much time and how much effort you're willing to put in right now. And the last one, the big one, I mentioned this in the beginning when I talked about the green ranks, is give it time. This is probably like on your journey where you're going to spend like the biggest chunk of time just learning and grinding. And it's almost like boot camp when you're like in the army. I've never been in the army, so sorry, that's very presumptuous of me to talk about what it would be like to be in the army, but that sort of stereotypical view you have of going, you know, and having a drill sergeant. It's almost like you have to be broken down and grinded to dust by this completely exploitative, aggressive, fast meta game, and you will eventually, if you are able to persevere and you have the persistence, going to become a grizzled veteran, and then it's going to seem so much easier. But until you get there, it is very hard and it is very frustrating. I broke my door in my bedroom in my home country when I was playing in the green ranks because I was so frustrated that I wasn't getting anywhere. I broke one of my PlayStation controllers at one point. I've had noise complaints. This is a long time ago, but I know all about being very frustrated when it comes to playing in these ranks in Tekken, and that is why I've done these videos on the channel where I go like showing you how I get through the green ranks on a character, because I think it's important to sort of show you that just with a couple of small modifications to the way you are playing, it can become so much easier. But that's going to tie it up for the green ranks. I hope that was useful. If you have any more questions in terms of this, please let me know. But for now, I want to move on and I want to talk about the yellow ranks. A lot of people talk about the Vanguard Warrior rank, which would be the divide between this rank over here and the previous highest green rank, as being the big divide for when players become seriously good. Which might be true. For me, I feel like the biggest jump up in skill is actually around Juggernaut. That's just my relative experience. People below Juggernaut for me are usually kind of easy to beat, but around and above Juggernaut, Usurper and above, you really need to start trying very hard, in my opinion. It's weird. I feel like it goes like exponential around there, but that's just my personal experience. It might not be true at all. But now that you're in the yellow ranks, you are officially becoming a pretty good Tekken player, and so you should start playing and thinking like one. And here is where the rabbit hole goes even deeper. And the tips I want to give you in terms of beating yellow rank players is, first of all, start learning about matchups and start learning more and watching your opponent's character more. Up until this point, it hasn't been as important, but at this rank, it becomes very, very important to be aware that you cannot play all characters against all characters the same. You need to play against Nina very differently than you play against Kazuya or Asuka, for example. You need to play very differently against a character like Nina. You can't go in with the same game plan. It is simply not going to work. Nina is a character that at least 90% of the time, even at these ranks, is going to be constantly in your face and applying these long strings. The strings are going to have highs, lows, and mids. They're going to have built-in side steps, and they're going to have throws. They're going to have counter hit launchers, and there's going to be armor moves. Just this complete package of crazy offense that she's trying to throw in your face. And there are certain ways to deal with that. And there are certain deals to deal with that depending on what character you play. If I am playing with Katarina, for example, I will use the fact that I have one of the fastest and most powerful counter-hit launchers in the game, which is her standing 4, to try and look for an opportunity to break up Nina's offense and get a launch. And if I can do that, then I deal something like 70 damage, and now I pretty much statistically taken the round, or at least swayed it heavily in my favor. If I play Miguel or Gigas, I try and create space, and I try and simply not be close to her so that she can do that to me. Then I try and come in with some sort of big mid and knock her away and knock her down, and then create space again. And just constantly do that to her and not allow her to be at range 0 where she's really comfortable. Conversely, if I'm playing against, for example, Kazuya, who's going to create a lot of space and look for whiff punishes with his electric and so on, if I try and like dash in with a mid and try and open up offense with something like that, because he's constantly moving and just looking for an opportunity to whiff punish, I might just be playing straight into his hands, and I need to do something very differently. Maybe I need to like fake a dash in and then stop and duck, look for the electric, and then try and launch that electric from while standing, or whatever else it may be. Basically, the point I'm trying to make here is that you need to be aware that every single opponent needs to be played in a different way, and it has to do with the way they play, and it has to do with what character they play. And this is going to be a big deciding factor as to whether or not you're able to succeed in the yellow ranks, in my opinion. The next thing I've written here is memorize strings, and what I mean by this is that there are a lot of tools that get applied constantly by your opponents on these ranks and at any rank, where there are opportunities for you to slink out and create an opportunity, such as sidestepping a certain part of a string or ducking a high in a certain string. If you don't do that, your opponent is going to, much like the one I talked about, linear moves in the green ranks, be able to apply a lot of undue, unfair pressure against you. But if you're able to duck one of these fast highs and apply a punish correctly, it is going to completely shift the momentum of the match in your favor, because it's going to make your opponent scared to keep on using those options, and so you sort of start to limit his range of offense and narrow him down. That becomes much easier to deal with when you do that. So we're talking about, down forward 1-4 from Dragunov, down forward 2-4 from Katarina, down forward 1-1 from Miguel and stuff like that. You have to be quick, but if you can do it, it's going to make such a difference. The next thing I've written here is apply mix-ups. You're playing at a rank right now where most of your opponents are actually quite accomplished Tekken players. When they launch you, they are going to combo for a lot of damage, they are going to wall carry, they are going to apply setups, and they are going to be using evasive movement. But if you are able to apply a mix-up where your opponent has to actually guess between two options, it's a guess, and if they guess wrong, they're gonna eat damage. They can be the best player in the world, they can be, just a completely amazing, robotic, super skilled player, and you can be quite new. But if you are in a situation where you are applying a true 50-50 mix-up, and they guess wrong and you guess right, then you're gonna deal damage to them, and you might even launch them. So a true mix-up is almost like a sort of wonder tool. It gives you this great opportunity where you can deal damage to anybody as long as you're able to create the opportunity to apply the mix-up. And this is going to come down to your character knowledge and whether or not your character is good at creating these mix-up opportunities. Learn how to do it with your character. In some cases, if you're playing Dragunov, it's as easy as applying a running 2. It gets blocked, now you get to mix up. With other characters, it's a bit more difficult and complex. The next thing and the last thing I'm going to talk about when it comes to the yellow ranks is, if you haven't done it already, I think you should really consider spending some serious time at learning Korean backdash canceling. because it's again a big divide. It's one of these big things that separates the men from the boys in Tekken. It's not as important as a lot of people think that it is, but it is important, and it's going to make a big difference. Doing single backdashes, which is something everybody can do, you just press back on the controller, is very important, but doing backdash cancellations to create more space is also very, very useful. This is another thing that feels completely impossible until you can do it, and it's something that's going to take you a lot of time to learn. I was avoiding learning this because I was trying to get around the fact that I couldn't do it for a very long time. I would like, oh, this is too hard. I'm practicing it for just a couple of minutes, and my wrist and my fingers were so tired that I was like, I want to practice more, but I can't go on. I'm going to ruin my hand. It's impossible. And I just had this like block in my mind that this is something that I'm not going to be able to accomplish. But then, you know, I spent maybe an hour a day for a couple of weeks, and it became a little bit easier, and it became a little bit easier, and then something happened, something clicked, and then I just had it. And like I said, that's what happens with Tekken a lot of the time. If you're able to start properly creating backdash canceling in this game, and because in the yellow ranks a lot of your opponents are still not able to do it, then you're able to establish a large competitive advantage against them. So spend a lot of your time in practice mode trying to learn this. A good way to do it is when you're playing online, you're in the lobby a lot of the time waiting for the next match, and when you're doing that, it's a great opportunity to make sure your combos are crisp and just do Korean backdash canceling. Do, you know, backdash, run in, and then just backdash again. And it's an issue of getting that into your fingers and getting it into your hand, and then it will start happening automatically down the line. But it's very important. It's another thing I'm not going to explain how to do in this video. There are many sources out there that explain how to do it. I think I'm going to do my own version of it at some point where I have two cameras so I can show you the screen and my hands at the same time. But that's going to be it for my tips in terms of the yellow ranks. And now we're going to move on to the last discussion I want to have in this video, which is the orange ranks. When you've reached the orange ranks as a Tekken player, you probably mastered all of the concepts that I've introduced so far. You know a lot of your matchups, you're able to perform all of your basic movements, you have basic character knowledge, you can block punish, you can whiff punish, you can duck highs, block lows, break throws, and now it's just an issue of tightening it up. A lot of the time when you're playing at this rank and you lose, it's because you feel like you had a lot of potential and a lot of things that you should have done and could have done correctly, but you weren't able to make those things come to bear. And so now it's just an issue of tightening it all up and making it all, you know, crisp and correct and clean, and you know, just smoothing out any rough edges that is left to your gameplay. And if you're able to play the game you want to play and that you know that you can play in the orange ranks, you tend to win. But if you get sloppy, if you lose your focus, if you make unnecessary mistakes, that's usually what loses you games when you've come this far. Another thing I need to say is that when you've started to play at these ranks, there's actually very little I have left to teach you. And so what you need to do right now is you need to start watching people who are world-class players, you know, the top players in the world. Usually they are Asian players. We're talking about people, you know, from Korea and Japan. These guys have hundreds of hours of gameplay footage from tournaments and streams out there on YouTube. But you are at a level right now where if you start watching them, even though they're not explaining what they're doing, because most of them don't speak English, right? Even though there are no written instructions, you should be able to watch what they are doing, think about it, understand why they are doing it, because they do almost everything they do for a reason. They are very methodical. And then try and start and emulate that yourself. When you're in the lower ranks, when you're watching somebody who is seriously like world-class level at Tekken, most of what they do might not translate to you and might not make sense, but when you're in the orange ranks, you should probably be able to start to understand why they are doing certain things, and you should be able to emulate it yourself. So that's going to be your biggest source of information in terms of learning and getting even better. You need to aim even higher, and emulating these guys is the best way to do it. Find out if there's somebody who's really good with one of your main characters, and then you know, what moves are they using most of the time? How is their playstyle different from yours, and what differences in relative success is that creating, and so on. And the last thing I want to mention when it comes to the orange ranks is I just want to give you a big pat on the back, and I want to give you my congratulations, because as far as I'm concerned, and as far as most people in the world are concerned, if you're able to reach the orange ranks and able to at least sustain yourself in the orange ranks for some amount of time, you are now an elite Tekken player. You are now very, very good at this game. You're probably very knowledgeable. You've probably spent many, many months or many, many years honing your instincts and your character knowledge, and you are now one of the better players in the world statistically. And from now on, your journey is going to be completely up to you and where you decide to take it. So very, very well done if you've made it this far. Alright, I think that's going to tie up what I wanted to talk about in this video. We're around like half an hour. That's about as long as I expected it to be, so that's perfect. Thank you so much for watching. I want to answer any questions you might have in terms of this, and obviously there are going to be people who disagree with what I've been talking about. That's very interesting and important as well, so do feel free to comment. In terms of the channel going forward, I'm just going to be creating content at the same pace and in the same form that I have right now. I'm constantly trying to learn how to make videos better in terms of like editing. I know I'm very much an amateur still, but for example, the last gameplay video I made on Miguel, where we got the Vanquisher promotion on Miguel, was the first time I had 4 different audio tracks with like game audio and music and my voiceover, and I was in an actual like audio editing software trying to make those levels fit, and it came out sounding alright. So I'm doing my best to make the videos sound and look better, and I'm just going to keep on going as long as you guys are going to keep watching. So thank you so much for everything so far. I hope the video was useful, and I will have more content with you guys in the near future. Thank you so much, and bye bye for now.